let's pick up where we left off. CGD. No, it was this one. CSS animation. Okay, this is what we were working on last time. Alright, so yeah, the animations and stuff is here, but I think what we're working on next is this side menu here. So, you guys want me to start over on this, maybe on a brand new project, because I think everyone was focused on the animations last time, so you didn't really have a chance to follow along with this one. Yeah, I'll start from scratch. I don't like continuing after leaving something, so I'm just gonna create a new folder. Call this let's call it header. CG 210 lecture 3, is it? Yeah. By the way, if you guys don't have this open with code, it's just something that it's one of the options when you're installing VS Code. I don't know if you could do it in Mac, but it's very convenient here. It just opens the folder for you, so you don't have to say file open folder. So we got an empty folder. I'm gonna create a new index.html in here. Exclamation tab, get our basic HTML boilerplate. I'm gonna create just one new folder. Let's call this styles, or yeah, styles. And inside that, a new file called styles.scss. And then let's link our SCSS with link type equals text slash CSS. Rel equals style sheet, and href equals, we'll go see, we gotta go into the styles folder, so /styles / styles.css, not SCSS but CSS. Even though this is SCSS, we're still putting CSS because once I hit watch Sass, it's gonna generate the CSS for me, and that's what we're gonna link to. And then to check if this is working, we'll add a background, body, background color, just change that to aqua, and then see if it's actually aqua, and yes it is. Close that one. Have these side by side, and we don't need this, so let's just delete that for now. Minimize that and give ourselves some more room here. Let's also turn on where's, oh, here we go. Okay, so we need to go to view and word wrap. Just doing that so we don't have to scroll left and right to see the rest of this. Alright, so we want a side menu, and I'm not gonna worry about the desktop view. I'm just gonna do like a mobile view, what it would look like. So it's gonna be the hamburger icon menu on the side. Since I already went through this one time, I'll go through it a little bit quicker this time. We're gonna need a header, and inside the header we'll need a nav. Inside the nav we'll need an unordered list, and inside the unordered list we'll need list items. So get that part done. And then for the list items, we gotta figure out what we want in our navigation. What were we working on last time? It was a restaurant, I think. Joe's Diner. So for a restaurant, you're gonna need a menu, about, contact, maybe locations, career, and merchandise. Just to have a few buttons. I don't want it to be too empty, so let's add those. So menu. So I'm not gonna just type menu because we need links here. So don't forget to put a anchor tag. href equals menu. Oops. Menu.html. That'll take us to menu. Copy paste that. We need about. We also need contact and locations and merch. I call it store. I don't know if that's a better name for it. Or shop. Let's keep that on the side. So here's what it looks like at the moment. Gonna need a logo. I think we decided because the navigation is what we're gonna be like hiding and showing. We want the logo to always, well, I don't know, we want the logo to be part of the navigation also. Maybe we could stick it inside the navigation, so whenever we open the navigation, the logo is like at the top. Or we could have it just always like at the top center, or maybe just above there. I don't know. Let's look at example sites. What's a nice one? Simple website designs. Let's get some examples. Does Airbnbs look like that? Airbnb. Okay, not a good example. It was human interaction. One of the assignments we did in previous class was a clone of this site. I don't know if it still exists. This one. Yeah, I like this one. When we click on the button to open it, this pops out, pushes everything to the right side. This could be a cool way to do it. Yeah, this would involve, I guess, we would have to create the header, or the navigation would have to um, have a width of 0 maybe on it, and then increase the width. Or I don't know if it's getting here. Let's get some hints from this website. How did they do it? If we inspect it, and well, here's a problem with this website though. As nice as it is, this remained open whenever I switched screen sizes. It's kind of a problem. They didn't think about that. So the menu is normally here, but then whenever you get a smaller screen, you click this button and this opens up. But problem with this is if you make it bigger again, you have no close button to get rid of it. Oh, but it just closes if you just click. So that works too. But anyways, I want to see how that comes out. So we right click on the navigation. We see here it's it's a div with a class of drawer, nav drawer. And currently it has overflow hidden, width of 300 pixels, left negative 300 pixels. I see. So they used, what is it, position drawer dash dash left, drawer overflow hidden. What is it, position absolute or relative? I can't tell. It doesn't say. No, it's position. Well, at least drawer inner is position absolute. What about the drawer itself though? Position. I don't know. Oh, here it's fixed. Okay, so it looks like the drawer is fixed position. So it's on top of the content. Remember, when you make something fixed, it will sort of ignore the other elements and overlap them. As you can see, it says human interaction with the hands, but we click this position button, this right, enable position fixed, it covers all of that instead of pushing it aside. So what they did is they added position fixed, which covers some of the content, but then they added left negative 300 pixels to push it aside to uncover that. Okay, so getting some clues on how they're doing things. And then when we close it, we look for a drawer. It's got display none on it, so it's actually hidden. But if I turn off the display none, it's not really revealing itself, so there's something else hiding it. With the left negative 300 pixels, I think. So it's still there on the side. It's just you can't see it because it's off the screen. Anyways, it's too confusing. I'm just gonna figure out my own way of doing the same thing. But this is not the human interaction website that I was trying to find. It's a different one. Maybe it was this one that I'm looking for. Oh yeah, this is the one I was looking for actually. I like it because it's simple, and then this is the sort of navigation I wanted to create, where you could see here the hamburger button stays where it is even when the menu is open, and then also the menu covers the entire page. I kind of like this design better. Another thing is the logo is always there in the same spot. So they didn't put the logo inside the navigation. Looks like the logo is just inside the header. So it's like a sibling of the navigation along with the hamburger button. If we inspect it, we can actually see that indeed we have a header. Inside the header we have a section. Inside the section we have the nav. I guess they did put the button and the logo inside the nav, but they have a second nav, I think. Yeah, they have two navs. They have that nav with the button and the logo, but then they have another nav that's got the actual list inside. Right, so there's the first nav, there's the second nav. I don't know if there's any rules against having two navs, but it's probably not necessary. We could just make that instead of a nav. Could not have a container, just put it there outside of the other nav. So basically we could do this. That's the second nav. That if we were gonna do it that way, and then they had another nav for just a button, the hamburger button and the logo they would put in there. But honestly, it's kind of weird having two navs, so I'm just gonna make this a div. And we don't even need to have a container for these two. We could just have, well, it's still gonna be a div, I guess. We still need the div that's gonna have a class equals hamburger, and this is gonna be the hamburger button with the 3 spans inside. And then next to that we could have another div, the class equals logo. Right, this will be our logo. So we have the header. Inside the header there's the hamburger button. Next to that is the logo, and next to that is the nav. So there's 3 things inside the header: div hamburger, div logo, nav. So if you're trying to follow along, I think this is the setup that I'll stick with. Header with hamburger, logo, nav. So the way this is gonna work is I'll try to stick with CSS, pure CSS, meaning no JavaScript. So we're gonna have to use what's available in CSS to make things work. Let's see. So we have the hamburger button. There is a sibling selector, meaning we go to our styles. Let's just add header over here. Inside the header we have a div with the class of hamburger. We have a nav, and we want to use the hamburger to trigger the nav, right? So with CSS we're gonna have to throw in a little checkbox somewhere. And basically, let's say this checkbox was here, input type equals checkbox. That was loud. Well, you guys probably didn't hear it, but so I have a checkbox here, and the way I want to open and close the navigation, if I'm not going to use JavaScript, I'm going to need to use a checkbox. It's the only way we could like turn something on and off without JavaScript. Um, so checked will mean that our checkbox is checked. And if the checkbox is checked, we could do something with the sibling selector, which is this tilde sign. So basically, okay, if we have a checkbox and the checkbox is checked, we could do things like, I don't know, change the background color to red, let's say. And give this a class of checkbox. Actually, for changing the actual, that blue box, it's not a background color, it's something else. So let me do something that we can change. Maybe padding we could do. Oh, that doesn't work either. I forgot. Checkboxes are hard to style. See, nothing is really padding, color, maybe border. I think border is like the only thing we could easily change. Border, color, let's say red. Not even that. Not really changing. We have to look up how to customize checkbox HTML. Okay, so it is possible to make them bigger like this at least. Did I try width and height? I don't think I tried width and height. Width 50 pixels, let's say. That just, no, that still didn't change the actual width of the checkbox itself. So there's a special way to do it. Let's look here. WebKit user select. Position check mark. You can see it's really complicated to try to change the styles of a checkbox, but you know we're gonna hide it anyway. I'm not trying to customize it, but I was trying to let's see. Solid white. You have to use these like pseudo selectors before and after, and then we're actually hiding the checkbox itself, I think. Yeah, there's like no way to actually style it. You basically, to style a checkbox, you have to hide it and then show something else in its place, which is what they're doing here, it looks like. I mean, there's styles for a container of the checkbox. There's the input itself, which I think is the checkbox itself, the input. It's got a width and a height of 0, opacity 0, so yeah, they're completely hiding it. Let's bring it back though. There you can see there's the actual checkbox. I don't know how I'm able to see it change the width though. And what's check mark? I don't know. Okay, that's too confusing. Forget about customizing the checkbox. Point is, you could style the sibling of the checkbox with the sibling selector. And in this case, the sibling is the nav because we have the checkbox, and then right after it, we have a logo, but we also have the nav. So the logo and the nav are both siblings of the checkbox because they have the same parent, the header. There's the checkbox, div, the nav. If you want to style the sibling of the checkbox, you use this sibling selector. And then which sibling do you want to style? Let's say the nav. And then we could say background color red, for example. Right, so we changed the color of the nav to red. Although I could have, of course, I could have put background color red here and done the same, right? Why am I using the sibling selector? Because I want to change the nav. Let's say I want to change the color whenever the checkbox is checked. Then you could do it like this: checkbox checked, nav red, and then get rid of this. And then whenever it's checked, you could have it, change color. So basically, whenever it's checked, we're gonna show the navigation. When it's unchecked, we're gonna hide it. So in order to do that, we need to use the sibling selector. So the sibling selector lets you change the style of this by checking the checkbox. So at the end, this is the last thing that's before the opening and closing curly brackets. So that's actually what's going to be styled here. And if I took this out, we would be styling the checkbox, but it's hard to show styling a checkbox because you can't really customize it that easily. Anyway, so that's like, you just know that because that's the concept that we're going to use to show and hide this. But we're also, instead of clicking the checkbox, we want to click the hamburger button, which, let's style those spans real quick so we could actually see it. And we need to give them a height of, let's say, 3 pixels, a width of 50 pixels. Give them some margin from each other. Let's say margin bottom 10 pixels. Give them a background color. Let's just do it black for now. And then remember, spans are inline elements, so we're not seeing it right now because the width and the height don't affect inline elements. You need to make sure we also convert this to display block so we could actually apply the width and the height. So now we could see the hamburger button. So now, instead of clicking the checkbox, I want to hide the checkbox and basically make this the checkbox. Make the hamburger button the checkbox. So the way we're gonna do that is by making the hamburger button the label for the checkbox. So there's a label element in HTML. If you have any input element, let's say we had, I'll just add like another input here. Let's go input type equals text, and here's the input type equals text. Normally, when you're creating a form, you can create inputs. You could put a placeholder for the text, but sometimes you just want a label for the input. So there's actually a label element that we can use. Label. Right, and the way you use the label, let's say the label says, I don't know, first name. First name. When I click this, nothing really happens. It's just regular text. But what I want to do is when I click this, I want my cursor to, say, get ready to type in this box. But when I click this. So for that to work, you say label for equals, and then you put the ID of whatever you want this label to be for. In this case, I want it to be for this input here. So I need to give this an ID. Let's call it name. And then here we could say label for name. Now if I click first name, you can see it triggers this box. So you could do the same thing with the checkbox. You create a label for it. So, but I don't want the label to be first name. I want the label to be this. So basically, let's get rid of this one. So basically we want the hamburger to be a label. So we just wrap it with label. Okay, so now the hamburger is a label for, and we want it to be a label for this checkbox. So we need to give this an ID equals, whatever, just call it checkbox. A label for checkbox. So now clicking the hamburger button will trigger the checkbox, because now it's a label for the checkbox. And clicking this now is affecting the menu, and that's exactly what we want. The next thing is to hide this, and we could hide it just by saying checkbox display none. Okay, but even though the checkbox is hidden, we're still triggering the checkbox, and we're still triggering this to change color. Anyways, does this make sense so far? Any questions? Okay, hopefully it makes sense. Alright, now so instead of changing this to red, we want to show and hide the menu. So instead of saying background color red, we could say display none. Basically show it, hide it that way. We could also say left. Well, if we're gonna use the left property, remember we need to make this position anything but static, so relative could work. Then we could say left, let's say negative 100%. So we could show and hide it by making it move outside of the screen. And with position relative, it doesn't add a scroll bar. If something is off to the left side, you're not gonna get a scroll bar so you can scroll to it, so that's kind of good. And the reason why it's better to do left instead of display none is because now we could animate this. We could say transition, let's say 1 second, linear, or it doesn't have to be linear, we could say ease. Transition all, or specifically we're transitioning the left property. You could say left or just all if you just want to transition everything, but that's really the only thing changing. So uh, transition all 1 second, ease. What are we missing? Oh, the thing we're missing is the position relative is only whenever the checkbox is checked. We need this to always, uh, the nav to always be position relative. Otherwise, it's not going to be able to animate from left 0 to left negative 100%. We also need left 0 because we got to go from here to there. And we need a starting point. So it's going to start at left 0 position relative to left negative 100% position relative. So now it actually animates. And it only animates one way at the moment because I put the transition here under whenever it's checked. We could move the transition to here. Just so the nav always has the transition now, not just the nav when it's checked. That way it'll animate both ways. So this is like the most basic way to show how this works. Let me unhide the checkbox so you know that's what's going on in the background. And there's not too much going on here, so why don't you guys create a new file and try this yourselves, and then let me know if you have any questions. I'll pause the recording for like 5 minutes, I think is all you need. I'll put these side by side so you can see both the CSS and the HTML. How do we put it side by side? There we go. Okay, so index and styles. I guess the HTML is kind of tall. Well, you don't need to see the head really. I mean, hopefully you're able to link your style sheet correctly, but I'll hide the head to save some room. I'll also hide this. That's all you need to see. Okay, but 5 minutes. It's 9:11. You have till 9:06 to try this out. See if it works for you. Okay, I'm continuing recording. So yeah, this is the very basics of how the navigation is gonna work. We have a checkbox. We have a label for the checkbox, so we could click the label instead of the checkbox to show and hide it. The label is our hamburger button. I'm zoomed in right now, but here's what it normally looks like. We'll be clicking that hamburger button to show and hide the menu. Since the hamburger button has this label wrapped around it, and the label is for the checkbox, it triggers the checkbox when we click it. So basically we can hide the checkbox with display none and just use the hamburger button as the trigger. We could also we could animate that little hamburger button to form an X, just like the where's the human interaction website? Did I close it? I guess I closed it. And just open it again. So here it is. So if you look at that button, when we click on it, it forms a nice X. And it animates. We could easily do this. by just moving this one down to the middle, moving this one up a little bit, rotating them 45 degrees, and then hiding the middle one. And those are these three spans. Span, span, span. We want to animate those whenever the checkbox is checked. So another thing that we actually have to make a little adjustment here. If we want something to happen to the hamburger button when we click the checkbox, I think we need to put the hamburger button after the checkbox. And just a limitation of CSS. Sibling selector I think only works with siblings that come after. So basically, if we check the checkbox and we want to change the style of anything here, this has to physically be after the checkbox in the HTML. But let's try it without doing that. Let's see if it'll work. Let me also get rid of this on the side. Alright, so when I click this, let's say I want to change the color of the three spans to red. Right, so I would say checkbox checked. Instead of nav, I want to change the hamburger button. So the hamburger button though is inside of a label. Sibling selector only works on siblings, and the hamburger is not a sibling of the checkbox. The label is, so we have to target the label. And not just the label, but the hamburger that's inside of it. So I think we could say checkbox checked label dot hamburger. Let's say we want to change, well, yeah, also span. I'm trying to change the color of those three spans. So checkbox checked, label is the sibling of the checkbox, and hamburger is inside the label, and span is inside the hamburger. So all this can be rewritten though as like this. Because we're using SCSS, we could nest these. And then let's say background color red. So whenever the checkbox is checked, we're going to target the label. We're going to target the hamburger inside the label and the span inside the hamburger. So whenever this is checked, we're going to target the label with the sibling selector, and then this and the spans inside. But like I said, it's probably not going to work because it only works whenever this comes after the checkbox. But again, let's try it. Yeah, nothing happens. But if we move this after the input, move, now it works. So it's just a limitation of this sibling selector. It only works on siblings that come after. So we have to make the label come after the checkbox. And that's why I moved it below the checkbox, the input. Alright, so whenever we click the checkbox, again, there's a checkbox in the background that's making all of this happen. Whenever that checkbox is checked, this turns red, the navigation disappears. When we uncheck it, turns black, navigation comes back. Right, but we don't want to change this to red. We want to form an X with these three spans. And the way we do that, first let's finalize the look of the hamburger. Is that a good width and thickness for the little icons? I think we can make it a little thicker. Let's say 4 pixels, maybe 5. And then also, what else? Let's get rid of I know there's margin bottom 10 pixels. We don't need margin bottom on the last one. We just need margin bottom this one and this one. We don't really need any margin below this one. So we could say and colon last child margin bottom 0, right? No margin on the bottom of that last one. Okay. Alright, so whenever the checkbox is checked, nav will get pushed to the left, and the hamburger span, the span inside the hamburger, inside the label, instead of being red, we're gonna want to target each one of these three separately. So we're gonna say span colon nth dash child 1, 2, and 3. So this will be for the first one, this will be for the second one, and this will be for the third span. And what do we want to do to those? For the first one, we want to move it down a little bit and then rotate it 45 degrees. So we could do top. Actually, to use top, remember we need to use a relative positioning or absolute positioning, anything other than the default. So we need to make sure these spans have a position or a position relative. So going back to the span here, let's make sure it has position relative. That way we could use top, bottom, left, and right. Let's also make them all start with top 0 and left 0. You need a starting position, so start will be top 0, left 0. And then when we check the label, for the first one, we'll change the top to, let's say, I don't know, try 10 pixels. You can see it move down. I think we need to go a little bit further than 10, maybe 15 pixels. We could also add a transition to that. So back to the span. Transition. Not transform, transition. Say all 0.5 seconds. Should we do stick with linear for now? Right, so now you could see it moving up and down. It's a little slow. I'll probably make it like 0.2 seconds at the end. Well, let's leave it 0.5 right now. So that's gonna move down. The second one in the middle, we could say left, I don't know, 100%. Have that just disappear to the side. Well, we could still see it, but if we make the hamburger itself overflow hidden, then we could, oh, we still see it. We didn't give the hamburger a width, that's why. Let's give it a width of 50 pixels. Okay, now it just disappears. The last one, nth child 3, will say top negative 25 pixels or 15 pixels. Negative will bring it up. Right, so now they're meeting in the middle, and the middle one is disappearing. Actually, I think we want the opposite to be happening here, don't we? I think what we want to happen is, right now we want the menu to be gone. So let me go back to the nav here. Say left 0 whenever this is checked, and then left, where is it? Left 100 or negative 100% normally. So it's normally hidden, but whenever this forms the X, that's when it'll come out. Anyways, it's not an X yet, it's just coming together into a single line. To form the X, we also need to rotate. And to rotate it, we'll use transform rotate. And we want to rotate on the z-axis, I think. So there's rotate X, Y, Z. We want the Z. And for the angle, 45 DEG for degrees. You can see it meets in the middle, also rotates. We want the same thing with nth child 3. So transform rotate Z, but this one negative 45. And you can see it forms an X. But we would like to add some delays to this because it would look nicer if it didn't rotate and come to the center at the same time. See how it's rotating and moving at the same time? It would be nicer if it first moves to the middle and then rotates. So for that you need a delay. We need to go to the transition here. The way you add a delay is just by adding a second number here. Like if I say 2 seconds, well, you can see when it refreshes it takes 2 seconds. When I click, it takes 2 seconds, then it rotates. Same thing going back. I clicked on it, it took 2 seconds to animate. So that's the delay. We want to delay, what do we want to delay? The rotation, right? So we could say, instead of all, we could leave the top value with 0-second delay, and then add a comma here, and for the transform, which is how we're rotating it, right? There's transform rotate. So for the transform, so we're adding a second transition, we're separating it with a comma. Instead of saying all, I'm specifying the top property for this one. This one I'm specifying the transform property. This will also take 0.2 seconds, but there will be a 0.2 second delay. I'll just add linear here too. So now if I click this, you can see it forms, it comes together, then it rotates. Let me slow it back down to 0.5 seconds. So it comes together, then rotates. Going back though, we kind of have to do the reverse. It's doing the same thing going back. It's again delaying the rotation, but we want the opposite to happen. When I click the X, I want it to rotate and then move apart, not move apart and then rotate. So we need to copy this transition to here whenever we check the checkbox. I'll add a span here. Actually, sorry, inside the hamburger, let's add a span selector. So this will affect all three, 1, 2, and 3. We'll say copy paste, but we need to reverse a few things. So whenever we click the box to check it, this is the transition that's gonna affect that. But going back, it's actually this one. So basically we need this one, the top to have a 0.5 second delay and the transform to have a 0-second delay. Now it's looking nicer. We also should probably delay the middle one. I think, okay, so going back to this transition, this is the one when we first click to check it. There we want a 0.5-second delay on the left property, because for that last span, or the middle one, we're moving the left property from 0 to 100%. So that's what we need to transition. We'll add a comma left, and we can say 0. Well, this one can be instant, 0-second length for the animation, but 0.5-second delay. There's no animation to see, so it's kind of pointless to say linear. And you can see now that's perfect. Comes together, and the middle one disappears. But it doesn't disappear till they come together. Now going back, we could also delay it the same exact way. Wait till it rotates and then make it disappear. And that's perfect. And 0.5 is too slow, so change that to 0.2. Yeah, by the way, I re-recorded this part because the first time I went over it, my brain was not working and I was putting in the wrong numbers. There we go, that's much nicer. Okay, so that's how you can create a slide-out navigation without any JavaScript, just pure HTML, CSS. So now it's up to you to style this and make it look good. That's it.